this paper in front of them because we will get started in a second. So the part that I don't want you to write down. So I don't want you to write this. This is just a little background. So true story, my next door neighbors have these really annoying, oh, yes, sir. Oh, you need a paper, don't you? A really annoying, like 2 chihuahuas that literally are like, all freaking day long. And because they do that all freaking day long, they keep them out in their backyard. They have like a little fenced in green space. It literally has this like cheesy looking doghouse and like fake grass and all this stuff like in this little dog, and it's like enclosed by a little fence. And so let's just say, for example, that they decided they wanted to redo that fenced in area, and it does happen to be a rectangle. I live in the Highlands, so we have really small yards. You know, it's kind of close to downtown where our yards aren't very big. So they don't have a lot of space, but they know that they want their dogs to have 50 square feet of space to run around in. And they know that they only have enough room in their yard for the length to be 10 feet long. So what if they're trying to go and figure out how much fence they need to buy? So they need to figure out how wide that fence would be. Anybody remember from middle school how you find the area of a rectangle? You do length times width or base times height, depending on the teacher. They call it, it's the 2 different ways of saying the same thing. So the formula is, we'll go with length times width because that's what a lot of people hear. So length times width. So if the area is found by doing the length times width, what could you do to figure out how wide this little space needs to be? To figure out, because we know that the area is 50, we know that the length is 10. What would we do to figure out that width? Exactly what she just said. Exactly what Katie just said. We would divide, right? We do 5 divided by 10. Now there are segments, so really that's not very challenging, right? Put the numbers in and then solve for the variable you need. There is a segment of people out there that use formulas a lot. Say nurses. If you decide you want to be a nurse, you're going to do a lot of math because you got to do dosages and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly, see? So you know. If you're going to go into any kind of science, there's a whole bunch of formulas that you need to know, right? So you don't necessarily always want to have to memorize. Like in this case, we wanted to know the width. So instead of putting in the numbers and then solving, another thing you can do is rearrange the formula to solve for the variable you want ahead of time. So what I mean by that is in our situation, we needed the width. So what you could do is length is sitting next to the width, right? That means multiplication. So what you could do is divide both sides. Really just do what Katie told me to do. Take the area and divide it by the length to get the width. So that is literally, do not write down what I'm writing right now, okay? Because right now I just want to tell you the reason behind this particular topic, but everybody reasoning behind what we're doing here, you're not really actually solving for a number. As you can tell, there aren't any numbers in here, right? Okay. All you're doing is you're taking the formula and you're rearranging it to get the variable isolated that it asks you to isolate. So, for example, and if I were you, I'd probably highlight too. I would probably highlight the same thing, exactly what I'm doing. It says solve for A. So what that means is that you want to isolate the A. And you're going to do it by using the same strategies that you've been using for months to solve equations, okay? You got to look at one side of the equation versus the other side of the equation. And I need to look right here and say to myself, what is sitting there on the same side of the A that is keeping the A from being by itself? There's a K over there, right? What's your best educated guess for how we're going to get that K off of that side of the equation? That's a great guess. And let me show you why, because that actually would deal with getting rid of the K. But here's why we're not going to do that, although that's a great guess. Because if we divide, K divided by K still leaves a 1 there, so you still got something over there. So almost, what would be, I think I heard another option. What was another option? We could do a minus K, okay? So we're literally going to take, oops, sorry, my head just fell. I'm getting hot. I'm getting really hot.
Wait, what are you?
Huh? I'm a whoopee cushion, bro.
Oh, she said bro.
All right, so how are we going to get rid of a K? We're literally just going to take that K off there. So everybody to take off a K, we're literally just going to put a minus K. The same way you would get rid of a 2 with a minus 2. The same. Oh, I love that question because I know you're not the. So this minus goes with the A. Correct. The A has a negative. The K, however, has no negative in front of it. So I love that question because I guarantee you other people had that same question, but they weren't willing to speak up. So I appreciate that greatly, ma'am. Okay, so because there's a positive in front of that K, the reason there's a positive is because there's no negative. So in front of it. So we assume it's a positive. So we're going to do a minus K the same way you would take away a 4 with a minus 4. Same way you take away a 6 with a minus 6. You'll take away a K with a minus K. And the rules for equations still stand true even when you're dealing with letters. If you do it on one side, you still have to do it on the other side. So again, this is the one side versus the other side, right? So we've got to do a minus K on the other side of the equation. Now, variables are racist, right? That one of those is a U and one of them is a K. Because they're not the same variable, we can't put them together. We can't combine them. We can't do anything like that. We still needed to get the K over to the other side, though, so we still had to do a minus K. But instead of, like, combining them in some way, what you're going to do on this side is you're just going to write it as U minus K. You can't combine them in any way because they're not the same letter. They're not like terms. Variables are racist, so we got to keep it as U minus K. We still got to get the K over on the other side, so it's over there, but we're just going to have to leave them separated. So now my question for you is, what, pray tell, mathematicians, is still left on this side of the equal sign after I got rid of the K? Okay, I got an A. Oh, I love that you guys said negative A and not just A, because yes, there is a negative still in front of that A. So the A, is the A isolated all the way yet? No, because we all know there's technically a hidden number in front of that negative sign. What number is it? 1. Exactly. There's technically a negative 1 in front of that A, and I'm going to rewrite it to reflect that actually. So there's a negative 1 in front of there because there was a negative, so that's where that hidden 1 is. Negative 1 sitting next to the A implies that we are multiplying. What is the opposite of multiplication? Division. So we've got to divide everything by negative 1. Remember how I keep saying it? Whenever you multiply or divide, you got to multiply and divide everything. This is why, for situations like this. So basically, so now we got the negative 1s cancel each other out over there. So we're just left with an A. And over here on the left-hand side, U divided by negative 1, all that's going to do is flip the sign. So now it's just going to be a negative U. And then on this side, negative K divided by negative 1, that's just going to flip the sign. So it's going to be a positive, correct, a plus K. So and this, friends, is actually your answer. Okay? All you are doing, so this is your answer. You are simply taking the equation and you're just rearranging it. That's a good way to think about it. You're not really like finding a solution. You're just taking the letters and you're moving them around to get the variable isolated that it asked you to isolate. I would always go back and do an extra step if I were you, and I would check and make sure that I have the same letters I started with, because you should, to make sure you did it right. So I started out with a U, a K, and an A. Do I have a U, a K, and an A in my final answer? Yes. So the odds that I messed up are at least a little bit smaller. Like, you're not doing anything but rearranging this. So if you're going to go into any kind of medical field, especially like if you're a nutritionist, for example, they've got to have lots of formulas for they use a lot of math actually, like based on your body chemistry and your body weight and stuff like that, like what kind of recommendations they have for you. They take formulas and rearrange them all the time. Sometimes somebody comes in and says, okay, what kind of diet do I need to lose weight? So then they got to use the same formula and rearrange it. You're not solving anything. You're literally just taking it and rearranging it. That's all you're doing. Now this one actually was a little bit more involved than number 2 is about to be. Is anybody still working on number 1? Is it okay if I scroll over to number 2? Yeah. Anybody not okay with me scrolling over to number 2? All right. Number 2, what are we being asked to get by itself according to the problem? Okay, we know it's asking us to isolate x because it says solve for x. So this, friends, is the one that we want to get by itself. So what, pray tell, is sitting here on that side of the equation that is keeping the x from being isolated? An m. The x and the m are sitting next to each other. Does that mean add, subtract, multiply? Oh, that means multiplication. Somebody ate her Cheerios today, her Wheaties. She's ready. Or stayed at a Holiday Inn last night. Y'all seen those commercials? She knows what's happening. Okay, how do we cancel out? If that's multiplication, how do we cancel out multiplication? Division. So friends, the same way you can divide by 2, guess what? You can also divide by m to get rid of that m. And what I do on one side, I have to do on the other side. So, on this side, my m's are going to cancel. I've got the x alone, like I need it to be. You can't actually come up with an actual number for z divided by m because we don't know what z or m are. So that is why you're finished. That's your answer. I'm going to double check and make sure that I still have all the same letters I started with. Z, X, M, Z, X, M. Still got all the same letters. They're just rearranged so that I've got the variable by itself that it asked me to get by itself. So really, y'all, I kind of like these because if somebody looks over your shoulder, they're like, man, that's some hard math that you're doing right now. But really, you're doing one step. And you're doing one step that you guys already know how to do. So I kind of think I like these because it makes you look smarter because it looks harder than it really is. So look at number 3. Oh, wait, sorry. Is it okay if I scroll?
We're doing all of them together.
So I'm going to give you guys time to do the next ones, but I'm going to do like one more. Actually, where's the one I want to do that was a little bit different? Oh, no, actually, these are all pretty similar. So no, we're good. Okay, I'll do one more for you. So number 3, actually, y'all take your best shot at what you think it needs to be first. What are you trying to isolate? What are you trying to get by itself? What's sitting over there with it? What needs to go? And I'll work it for you in just a second. So take your best shot at what you think you need to do to solve for, get whatever variable they say to get it by itself. So that's when you want to get by itself, right? So that one's going to stay put. You're going to get rid of the one that's with it. Itself, guys. What are we trying to get by itself? The A. So the A is the one that stays put. We got to get rid of the other stuff over there with it, though. What's sitting over there with it that needs to go? A K. How do I get rid of a K? Minus K, because that's a plus K. I also got to do it on the other side. Now, as much as Kentucky fans in here would like to think so, U and K don't go together, okay? They do not combine because they are not like terms. So you got to leave them as 2 separate, U minus K. We got the K's canceled, and there's nothing else sitting there with the A, so we are done. Okay, I want to do one more with y'all, but I'm going to shut up for a minute and give you a chance to do it first. So number 4. And then I'm going to let you do the second half. You cannot screw up any other way than just not doing it, folks. The only way you can mess this up. Only way you can mess this up is not doing it.
Oh my God.
What's very harmless? Great, folks. What letter am I trying to isolate? The A. What's sitting over there with the A that needs to go? What's sitting on the same side of the equal sign with the A? The minus M. How do I get rid of a minus M? Plus M. Where else do I need to do plus M? Correct. Do Z and M go together? They can't combine. You still got to put them together on the same side. So I'm just going to rewrite it as Z plus M. Bring down my A. Anything else that's keeping the A from being by itself? Nope. Yeah, there's right. All you got to do, you are not well, you're technically solving it because you're isolating a variable, but you're not getting like a typical numerical answer. Okay, so I'm going to shut up. Give y'all the opportunity to do this second half right here if you haven't already. I am going to work a couple of examples on the back. If a couple of y'all get done, because I can already see some of y'all are already getting ready. I'm trying to get the X by itself. What is sitting over there with the X that needs to disappear? An M and a Y. M, X, Y, all sitting next to each other. Does that mean add, subtract, multiply, or divide? Multiply. How do you cancel out multiplication? Division. So y'all, you can divide by more than one thing at once, okay? So you got to divide by M, and you have to divide by Y. You got to divide by them both to get rid of them both. Then I'm just going to divide that side by MY because you still got to do the same thing on both sides of that equal sign. You're doing exactly the same thing. You're just doing it twice instead of once. Or you're doing it with two things, I guess, instead of one. So we're going to just write Z divided by MY because we don't know numbers, so we can't really divide anything. We just got to set it up. And then what is left over on the other side after we cancel? That X is by itself, correct. So we're just going to say equals X. And that, friends, is your answer. It's just rearranged, okay? I'm going to do one more. Actually, that's not true. I'm going to do two more. Number two, I'll bet you got a good idea where we're going with this. What is by itself that needs to go? The A. What is sitting there with the A? The C and the B. Are we adding, subtracting? What's happening with all those? Yes, we're adding, but that means we subtract. I couldn't have said that better myself. How do I get rid of plus C with a minus? And you can actually subtract in the same step. You don't have to do two separate. You can do a minus C and a minus B. And just make sure you do minus C and minus B over on the other side too. You're doing exactly the same thing you're doing on part one. You're just doing it with two letters instead of one. Can you combine a G, a C, and a B?
Can you combine the C and minus B?
We can't because they're not the same letter. Every letter is racist, not just X, y'all. None of them want to be together if they're not the same. So we're going to we got to write it separate. G minus C minus B. Because you can't put them together. You've got to have those subtraction signs in between them. So if we cancel out that and that, what do we have left? An A. So it's just equal to A. Last one I want to do for you because it's a slightly different. Anybody got a problem with me going to number 3? Are we okay with number 2? Okay. All right. This one's a little different, but still nothing you haven't done before. What am I trying to get by itself? The x. What is sitting there with the x that needs to go? The y and the c. It's going to be easier for you to get rid of the one down the hall first before you get rid of the one next to it. So let's start with the y. How do you get rid of a y? A minus y, because it was already a positive y. So we're going to do a minus y. What I do on one side, I have to do on the other. So g minus y. And I got to bring those down because I still haven't gotten rid. Is my x by itself yet? No. What's still sitting there? A c. C sitting next to the x. What does that mean? Adding, subtracting means multiply, right? So you got to divide. Exactly. So remember how we said if you divide it, you got to divide everything. It's okay. Matt, everybody gets treated fair. That's why it's the best one. So you could do it this way if you want to. You could write it as two separate c's dividing by. But what you're typically going to see is just write one big long fraction bar and just put one c underneath there. Because that means you're doing g minus y and then you're dividing them both by c. That's typically how you'll see it. It was like a big fraction bar underneath it. So those cancel. Leave you with an x. And we've got g minus y over c. So this is your answer, friends. I would always double check. Make sure I start out with a g, a y, a c, a x. I've got a g, a y, a c, and an x. So I still have all the same letters. They're just rearranged. Okay, now I'm going to shut up, answer individual questions that come up. See, believe me when I say it's really not as bad as it seems, is it? Okay? Really not that bad. Actually, Reese is right. I should do that one for the group because it's a little different too. No, he's right. I should do this one. What am I trying to get by itself, guys? X. What is sitting there with the x? Okay, so notice the x and the m are above the y, right? What does this mean that we're doing with the y? Adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing? What's a fraction bar mean? Division. So what Katie just said, we're going to cancel out division by multiplying both sides. So let's start there. So we've got, on the left-hand side, we'll say y times z, because they're sitting next to each other, because that means multiply. What happened with these two y's right here? They cancel out. Exactly. That was the whole point of doing it in the first place. I still have my x and my m. Is the x by itself? Nope. What do I still need to get rid of? Division. What? Oh, how? Sorry. Darn it. I hate it when I give the answer when I'm trying to ask a question. How are we going to get rid of that m? We're going to divide. So y times z over m equals x.